Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing a wild win streak that I had live on stream to climb up to 3270 ELO in the Open Great League with, of all things, a Lucario. Now, an important clarification before we hop into these battles, this team is a team that has many flaws. I do not recommend you try the team out for yourself because it's ABA weak to a lot of popular Pokemon like Jumpluff. The team I used is Lucario lead, Ludicolo as the safe switch, and Mantine as the closer. Now, Lucario obviously doesn't like fighting types and ground types, so I tried to pair with Pokemon in the back that could cover those weaknesses. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and we get the dream lead in the first match, Lucario into Shadow Mightyena. It's matchups like these that made me want to run Lucario in the first place, as due to Lucario's fighting steel typing, it's a very good core breaker into the Bug Bite 4 plus Carbon Core, and obviously completely shuts down Mightyena. Now in this first match, you can see I actually forgot to TM my Ludicolo. I built the team, did not check the movesets, so I am accidentally still on Leaf Storm. For the remainder of the battles, I will be on Energy Ball, which is a far better move to run. Either way, Leaf Storm able to take the knockout, back in comes the Shadow Mightyena, and I will have to settle for a -2 attack debuffed Weather Ball. Weather Ball will still hit for some pretty okay damage, and now I can bring in the Lucario. In the back is Tinkaton, I bank an Aura Sphere for later, and bring in the Mantine. I don't think my opponent's ever going to bait the first here, so if I'm going to shield, I may as well shield the first, where I can be pretty confident that I'm not going to end up shielding a Bulldoze bait. The final shield of the game is definitely going to be going to the Lucario. They can fire off another Gigaton, but I will be able to hang on. It is going to be a losing CMP tie. That's actually very IV dependent, so very good to know for the remainder of the game. My opponent brings in the Mightyena, trying to go for the combo play, but I can fire off the Water Pulse, get big damage onto the Mightyena. They're barely able to hang on, but I'm just going to take the damage on the Mantine. From here on out, I should just be able to go for the full Force Palm down with the Lucario. Lucario would probably get KO'd by a Bulldoze from this range. Lucario is extremely glassy. We do get debuffed, but we just get the Force Palm down, and we're able to get the win. Hopping into game number 2, we get a pretty nice lead, leading Lucario into Shadow A9. A9's going to throw a fast move, safe switch into Sableye, and Sableye is a bit of a problem Pokemon for this team. I don't have a strong answer. I'm just going to stay in, fire off an Aura Sphere, which will hit for some pretty massive resisted damage, and then once I've gotten a shield, I can just bring in the Mantine. Mantine is the Pokemon on the team that is weakest into A9, so I'm basically just going to throw it away. Even if I end up losing Switch and the A9 ends up being on Ludicolo, Ludicolo actually does quite well there. So I see him P-tie Twister with the double up on Foul Play, and I'm just going to be fully sacrificing the Mantine. Mantine has done its job, now I'm just going to go for farm with Lucario. So I do get a 1 Force Palm head start. In the back is Jellicent. Switch advantage definitely would have been nice, but I still feel like I'm in a pretty good position. I bring in the Ludicolo, shield up as they fire off the Shadow Ball, and now back in comes Alolan Ninetales. Ninetales will be able to inflict some pretty big neutral damage with Weather Ball, but Ludicolo should be able to hang on. And with Ludicolo being able to survive, now I can threaten the knockout with the Energy Ball. Energy Ball, I believe, will come just about close to taking the knockout. My opponent puts up the shield, and I just fire off the Weather Ball as soon as I get there. I want whatever damage I can get onto the Ninetales. Weather Ball lands, Ninetales barely clinging to life, and I can just fully throw away the Ludicolo. At this point, the win condition is getting to 2 Thunder Punches with Lucario. Back in comes the Jellicent. My opponent's only hope is to try and get a Hex down, but it's just never going to happen. Thunder Punch lands, opponent sees the writing on the wall, and concedes the match. We move to the next game, leading Lucario into Shadow Marowak. That is a terrible lead. I'm going to save switch into Ludicolo, and my opponent's going to respond with Dunsparce. Now this is a duo that was pretty popular quite a few seasons back. Marowak plus Dunsparce, both Pokemon actually share the exact same type coverage. They're both relying on that really good neutral coverage provided by having a rock move and a ground move. In this case, Dunsparce is going to be spamming out a ton of rock slides. If I'm able to land a second Energy Ball, that would actually come pretty close to taking the knockout here, so I decided to go for the bait. I feel like my opponent kind of has to shield here, so this should be a pretty good bait, but they end up no-shielding. Great bait call from them, and unfortunately, I'm now not going to be able to flip switch. They can just shield once, farm down, and exit with the Drill Run loaded. I can't let a Drill Run land on Lucario, so I send in Lucario and go for the Peekaboo catch onto the Mantine. Drill Run is going to be doing less than no damage. However, they're able to hang on and make the Rock Slide. Now this, I will actually have to put up the shield. If they have Carbink in the back, I'm in a ton of trouble, but that's not a Carbink, it's Clodsire. Suddenly this game actually looks very, very winnable. I'm not in Stone Edge range either. Water Pulse should pick up the 2-hit KO onto the Clodsire, and my opponent knows it, so they will shield back. All shields now down in the match as I decide to match shields, and my game plan is pretty simple. they did end up hard switch locking the Clodsire. So I'm going to fire off the Water Pulse and then just look to bring in Lucario and hopefully force my opponent to throw some energy. If they don't throw energy and bring back in the Marowak, well, then I'm able to make an Aura Sphere. Aura Sphere will hit for very nice damage onto the Marowak. Marowak is able to hang on and survive the Force Palm, but not by much. All this is going to do is just feed energy over to the Mantine. Mantine should be able to get the one wing attack farm down. They have a Stone Edge on the Clodsire, but I should be outside of range. I haven't taken a lot of damage on the Mantine. Stone Edge lands, I just undertap the Water Pulse, and that's going to be knocking out the Clodsire. All they have left is a very low health Dunsparce. How many wing attacks will it take? We get the farm down with 2 wing attacks. That was a very bad team comp for us, but we're able to get the win. Great lead in the next match, Lucario into Shadow Celio. My opponent safe switches into Seaking, and I bank energy and send in the Mantine. Mantine should have a pretty nice matchup into the Seaking now. Even though I will be Icy Wind debuffed, the fact that I got those Force Palms means that they should still just about be in double Twister range. The one thing I have to be very careful of is potentially giving a massive farm down to the Celio. I'm going to exit the matchup double debuffed, and if Celio can just tank a double debuff Twister and get a massive Powder Snow down, then Surfs would definitely threaten the Lucario. So I decide that I'm going to play aggressive. I'm actually just going to hard pivot back into Lucario. Celio hits the field, I bring in Lucario, but it's Marowak in the back, and my goodness, the slappers are out in force today. I fire off Aura Sphere, hoping to make Aura Sphere number 2, but I can't get there. I fall to the Mud Slap, and now let's bring in the Mantine and force energy. I believe they can probably Bone Club into a farm down here, but they do go for the Rock Slide. That's good for me. And now the reveal, it's Ludicolo in the back. And Ludicolo should have the perfect coverage and Mud Slap resist to be able to close out this game. I put up the shield as they go for the Rock Slide. In comes the Celio, and Celio will instantly be met with the Energy Ball. If I full send both moves, I should have a guaranteed path to victory. My opponent can fire off Body Slam. I do decide to put up the shield here. Body Slam wouldn't do a lot of damage, but I was trying to figure out what is my lose con. Maybe like a Rogue Aurora Beam or something like that, even though that's a move that's never run on the Celio. Energy Ball will take the knockout. Back in comes the Shadow Marowak. We're going to make it to the Weather Ball on the CMP tie, and that is going to secure the win. Ludicolo putting in the work, knocking out Marowak, and getting us the win. We move to the next game, and unfortunately the Marowaks are just inescapable. Lucario into Shadow Marowak. A safe switch into Ludicolo. Out comes Dunsparce, and I honestly feel like it's Groundhog Day. We are experiencing deja vu. I just saw this team a few games ago, and now it's back. Last time, I ended up going for a bait. I went for the Weather Ball bait into Dunsparce, and they called it, and that really made life uncomfortable. So this time, I'm going to be going for the full send. I want to try and guarantee getting a shield or be able to flip switch. Flipping switch would be very, very helpful for me, because that way I could have Mantine on the Marowak. I fire off the Energy Ball, they put up the shield, and unfortunately, I just cannot get these shield calls right against the Dunsparce. I will make it to a Weather Ball, but my opponent's counting. They know I can't possibly have enough. I bring in the Lucario, I try and switch into the Mantine, but unfortunately I think I got one turn bring in there, so I'm not able to go for that same catch. I will still get the farm down, but I feel like I'm not in an amazing position. Back in comes the Marowak, I'm getting shredded by the Mud Slaps, I bring the Mantine, and it's Clodsire once again. Thank goodness we are 2 for 2 on avoiding that backline Carbink. Clodsire is a very playable matchup for Mantine, especially up energy. Stone Edge will hit for big damage, but I'm going to outpace and make it to the back-to-back Water Pulses. My opponent should know they have to let the Clodsire go. They're going to win or lose this game with the energy they have on the Marowak. So I fire off the Water Pulse. Water Pulse is shielded by the Clodsire on the CMP tie, and that will instantly end the game. My opponent had to let that go and try and save the shield for that Marowak, because now that Marowak doesn't have a shield, I can just bring back in the Lucario. Lucario makes the Aura Sphere, Marowak gets KO'd, and even though I'm walled by Clodsire, the Force Palms plus the Aura Sphere would do enough to secure the win, so my opponent will concede the match. We get a great lead in the next match, leading Lucario into an Astonished Dunsparce. Astonished Dunsparce has straight 4 pacing to drill run. I will put up the shield and look for the full farm down, but they opt out and send in Shadow Hippowdon. Shadow Hippowdon is an incredibly spicy pick. I fire off the Aura Sphere just to get a shield, and then I'm going to bring in Ludicolo. Now honestly, I have no idea who wins Charge Stack Priority in this matchup. I do have a very high rank Ludicolo. It's one of the rare Pokemon that I actually have good PvP IVs on, so I'm not going to risk it, as I assume Hippowdon would be favored there, so I end up just throwing off the Weather Ball right away. If my opponent goes for Earth Power, there's a very real chance it takes the knockout. I assume it does more. Earth Power connects. I survive, but I faint to the Sand Attack. That is a little bit tragic, but I'm going to try and go for a big Force Palm down with Lucario. My opponent's going to pivot out. They reveal their final Pokemon in the back is Tinkaton, and Lucario looks very strong here. I fire off the Aura Sphere. I'm just going to stay in to force them to throw the Bulldoze. They throw 2 in the move, so that way the second Force Palm won't land. Nice energy management for my opponent, and now it's Mantine versus the world. I know the Hippowdon has at least one Weather Ball Rock banked, maybe even more energy than that, so the final shield will definitely have to go to the move from Hippo. They Gigaton, I will overfarm quite a bit, going for the Water Pulse. There's a catch, and they catch onto Dunsparce. Dunsparce had taken 5 Force Palms earlier in the game, and with the Water Pulse landing, I'm able to get the full farm down. That is so big. If my opponent brings in Hippo, I'm not going to go for the CMP tie. Instead, I'm just going to go for the Wing Attack. In comes Hippo. They try and go for the CMP tie, but I will put up the shield. Now, if I throw one more Wing Attack, I should always be able to outpace that Tinkaton and win the game. Tinkaton should still be 3 Fairy Winds away, whereas I am only 2 Wing Attacks away from the Water Pulse. So with careful energy management on the Mantine, Mantine pulls off the triple KO, knocking out all 3 Pokemon, and that's a good game. We pick up a terrible lead in the next match, Lucario into Corsola. I save switch into my only answer, which is the Ludicolo. My opponent sends out an Umbreon, and I am in absolute shambles. Umbreon resisting Astonish means that this is such a dominant neutral matchup for my opponent. I can fire off Energy Ball, but that does not even 3-hit KO. Umbreon is monstrously bulky, and unfortunately, this realistically doesn't seem like a matchup I can ever flip, or even potentially save the Ludicolo and try and pivot out. I think the best course of action is probably to soft lose the matchup and then just try and go for a bunch of farm on Lucario. My opponent will need back-to-back foul plays here, but they do have the energy. I reach for the Weather Ball, but they're never going to let me get there. But this should hopefully be like 3 Force Palms of energy for the Lucario. I bring in Lucario, there's an insta-pivot, and in comes Corsola. I bank some energy, send to the Mantine, but it's not like Mantine does well here either. I'm going to shield the first. They should always go for the Power Gem. If I no-shielded the first Power Gem, then I would have to shield a Nightshade later on. So I feel like if I'm shielding, I may as well make them shield the 50 energy move rather than having to shield the 45. My opponent is going to undertap. They want to guarantee damage on the Mantine. And you know what? Fair enough. I will let that Power Gem land. I'm hoping the Water Pulse will be enough to secure the knockout here. If it doesn't, though, my switch timer should be up, and I could potentially snipe with Force Palm. So I bring in Lucario, snipe down with the Force Palm. In the back, they have Mantine, and unfortunately, I do think I have lost this game. Even though I have Thunder Punch, I'm at a shield deficit, so my opponent can just double shield the Thunder Punches, always outpace, and KO with Double Twister. But they end up pivoting out, they try for a catch, they make a massive misplay, and just like that, we're guaranteed to win the game. I immediately throw the Thunder Punch on alignment because they were at 9 Wing Attacks there. Had I tried to go for good timing, they could have doubled up on the back-to-back Twisters in one, but by throwing on alignment and giving them a free one, it forces the CMP tie on my second Thunder Punch instead of my first. We one-hit KO the Mantine, and we escape with a win that realistically we never should have had. We move to the next game, and oh my goodness, what a lead. Lucario into Licky Licky. My opponent safe switches into Corviknight. Even though Thunder Punch is super effective, Aura Sphere is such an incredibly strong move that I assume it still does more. I fire off Aura Sphere, grabbing the shield, and now I can send in Mantine. Mantine should be able to tank 2 paybacks pretty comfortably here. My Mantine, it's okay IVs. It definitely could be better, but it's the best Mantine that I've ever found, and I believe it should just be bulky enough. The first payback did do quite a lot of damage, but even as these sand attacks slowly start to add up, I should still barely be able to hang on. It's not going to be by much though. They do fire off Air Cutter actually fishing for the boost, but thankfully they don't end up getting it, and that means the second Air Cutter will miss the knockout. Had they gotten that boost, there's a 30% chance that I would have actually been KO'd and not been able to make this second Water Pulse. But the Water Pulse will be shielded, but this honestly can set up a pretty cool farm down for Lucario. I bring in Lucario, I'm going to shield up the Air Cutter, go for the full farm down, and exit with energy for whatever they have in the back. My opponent pivots out, it's Annihilate, the counter shred through Lucario. I pivot out and bring in Ludicolo. I did debate going for an undercharge on the Weather Ball here, and I go for a slight undercharge, but it still ends up knocking out. The idea behind undercharging was if I can force the Annihilate to knock out the Ludicolo and then get the Force Palm down, then I wouldn't give any farm to the Licky Licky. However, I was a little bit worried that I would take too much counter damage on the Lucario, so I figured I may as well just knock out the Annihilate and trust into Lucario to win the game. Well, after I get an Energy Ball debuff onto Licky Licky, that should instantly end it. Without the debuff, I think I would have had to throw the Aura Sphere, and then it would have come down to a game of turn waiting. But now, because of the debuff, I can just Force Palm all the way down. In comes Corviknight. Corviknight gets farmed down as well. We have the Aura Sphere, and my opponent will resign the match. All fun things must come to an end, so let's take a look at the game where the win streak was lost. We pick up a pretty terrible lead. Lucario into Jump Bluff. I safe switch Mantine. In comes Stunfisk, and this game is just absolutely over. I was making the read that if they're leading Jump Bluff, they can't really have a Stunfisk in the back because then they'd be ABA weak to Kanto Ninetales. But I forgot the cardinal rule of playing on leaderboards. On leaderboards, you can run some pretty insane ABAs and get away with it, and unfortunately, that's going to end up costing me in a very big way. This team is very, very weak to Jump Bluff as is, so I think that my only hope realistically was to basically send in the Mantine. They end up throwing a bunch of energy and staying in, and then I can try and beat the other two Pokemon in the back with the Lucario and the Ludicolo. But unfortunately, they had a Stunfisk, my Mantine got destroyed, and now I'm stuck throwing entirely resisted moves at a Jump Bluff. The Jump Bluff actually ends up shielding there as they realize just how important this Jump Bluff is. Acrobatics takes the knockout, and I think my only way back in this game is to try and call an Energy Ball bait. So I'm no shielding. Fingers crossed, but Acrobatics picks up the one-hit KO. GG's to Kazim, and the win streak ends at 9. And this is me claiming that final set. We went 5-0, and then this set was a 4-1. So the 5-0 got us into the 3200s, and then the 4-1 took us up to 3270 elo, which leaderboards have not updated yet at the time that I'm recording, but should comfortably be within the top 10 ranked battlers on the Go Battling leaderboard, maybe even an outside chance for top 5. All in all, I kind of put together this team as a fun way to try and tank elo. I wasn't really expecting this team to do anything as far as winning games in the Go Battle League, but I wanted to try and have a fun stream where I ran something that was kind of crazy, off meta, and if we ended up losing, at the very least, our queue times would get better for the upcoming Evolution Cup. But unfortunately, the reverse ended up happening. After a 3-2 set to start, we ended up pulling off the 9-1 run, including 9 wins in a row up until that final game, and getting up to 3270 elo. I am incredibly happy because this should be putting me firmly back inside the top 10 on leaderboards once again, but I'm not quite sure how I'm going to end up getting opponents to try and tank from here because I would love to play the Evolution Cup. The Evolution Cup meta, I was taking a look at it, actually does look pretty fun on PD Poke, so I'm very excited to kind of try out the Evolution Cup. So I guess I'm going to have to try and maybe do like a Twitch pick stream or something like that where I can end up tanking a bunch of elo, just so that way I can hopefully get Qs during the Evolution Cup because I would love to be able to play it. But this season, with the player base kind of split, with always having the Open Great League available with Competitors Cup, unfortunately, Open Great League is kind of the staple format. So when it's available, that's what people will play. So it's a lot tougher to get Qs in those other leagues when you're very high up on leaderboards. So I'm hopeful that by running some truly abysmal Twitch picks, then hopefully that can tank my elo down quite a bit to where when it does actually roll around and Evolution Cup shows up, that I will actually be able to play it. But for now, honestly, I'm just still blown away by the fact that Lucario was able to win as much as it did. I mentioned at the start, I don't recommend this team for climbing because we saw what happens when you run into one of the core breakers. The team has very little play. If you see a Jump Bluff on lead, it's just automatically lost. I do think Lucario's typing is kind of interesting when it comes to breaking like a lot of the Fort Pink teams. Unfortunately, we didn't end up seeing any Fort Pink teams and only saw one Mightyena, but the stats, even with the amazing moveset, the stats really hold Lucario back from having true meta contention. Whereas if we had a Steel Fighter that had actually good stats, like let's say a Great League eligible Cobalion or something like that, I think that could actually be a really interesting part of the meta. But for now, unfortunately, it's more of just a meme pick, and some days you could end up getting lucky and going on a pretty crazy win streak with it. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching today's video, please do leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and an extra special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is so appreciated, so thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.